Good afternoon, listeners and viewers, and welcome to another episode of The News Behind the News with Raf Tab, right here on Mix 94.7 FM. And today I have with me Mr. Telston Bell, Director of the Maarten Housing Development Foundation. Good afternoon, sir. How are you doing?
Good afternoon, Ralph. I'm doing fine. Good afternoon, radio listeners and viewers here and abroad.
Cool.
How are you all doing?
All right, so it's good to have you on because, as the show's title suggests, it's all about getting to the facts of what's happening on St. Martin, particularly. And the Housing Development Foundation has been in the news recently. So it's good to have you in the program that you guys can also, share your perspective on the topics that made the news. But to begin, so basically, the Housing Development Foundation stated that it may have to raise rents due to the fact that uh, requests, I believe, for funds from the World Bank were denied. And the first question to you is basically in the press release from SMHDF mentioned that due to low rent rates, you can't construct affordable housing for residents on the social housing list. So when exactly did the Housing Development Foundation realize a change in your financial structure?
A change.
So
Okay.
like so
Wait,
at
wait.
what point did you
I got you.
face
I have you. I
Yeah,
got
okay,
what you're
gotcha.
saying. 100%. Not a problem. But based on everything, let's start from the beginning. When your first sentence you said was basically the article that was written that said raising the rent. And that whole headline, the only thing that was apparent to everybody and what's important to everybody, what caught everybody's attention was the fact that rents might be raised at some point. But nobody seems to have, the whole point of that article was to indicate, hey, funding that was supposed to be made available is not forthcoming. Something happened along the line and something was not dropped off or delivered where it was supposed to be. But instead of that being the topic, our topic has shifted and gone only towards raising rent. Now, to answer your question truthfully, when did Housing Foundation realize their dire need or their constraints? It's always been that way from the inception of Housing Foundation.
So your funds have never really been that's viable. So
It has never been.
okay.
For the simple fact that when the Housing Foundation came into existence, it came into existence with problems. So you never had a viable source of a way of generating funds the proper way. Because if my apartments, I have built new apartments. Once they are built, I have a minimum of 5 years maintenance free and problem free. So that first 5 years is most important 5 years of any establishment, because that's where you generate funds in order to circumvent or fill a gap when a problem arises. But if you don't have that buffer, in other words, where you can build a reserve in order to do what you need to do, you always going to have problems from the onset. And that's what Smart Housing Foundation was always faced with. From the inception, there were always problems. The first time it rained, roofs leaks. The first set of toilets that were used, you got blockages. The first cabinets that were used, you got blockages as well. So they were all type of issues that Housing Fund challenges and issues that Housing Foundation were faced with from the onset. So we, instead of them being able to go into have a proper maintenance period, they went straight into repair, where these things should have been it should not have happened. But in a lapse, and basically not a lapse, but the fact that it was built by government from with an outside entity. The supervision of the work was not to par. I know personally of some supervisors that working at, then it was DOA, and they was kicked off for the project because they were inspecting it too properly. So you got shortcuts that were done, and because of those shortcuts, that's what have us in the problem that we are in today. So it's not nothing new. From the first director ever set foot in Housing Foundation, they knew what the problems were. They went around trying to force the contractor. This what I've read in documents. They tried to get a contractor to come back and fix the problems that were done. Then, of course, politics plays a huge role. You got one politician that walked in and demanded that the contractor be paid immediately because the work was completed, even though it was
What years was that?
that was in '89.
Oh, wow, some time back.
Yeah, no, '98. Sorry, '98, because this was after Irma.
After Lewis.
After Lewis.
Okay, gotcha.
They were built in '97. '98 is when people started moving in, and then we had all these discoveries of what the problems were. Then you had commissioners, and yeah, it is what it is. They come in and they decide, hey, pay the contractor because the work was completed. Because the contractor had already started doing repair work. When the contractor was paid, the work stopped immediately. They were actually literally people working in the homes, putting up sheetrock and fixing doors and windows. Once that money cleared, they all received call. Everything was put down. All the materials are left where they are, and they were gone. So Housing Foundation now had to continue that work themselves.
So your foundation was just...
The foundation was sabotaged from the onset.
All right. And now the solution has to... Now there's need for a solution.
There's need for a solution.
Mm-hmm.
Look, everybody always tend to say, yeah, Bell, you're only focusing on the money. I say yes, because that's the solution. Nothing can be done without money. All repairs that we are doing needs money. Whatever you want to do in life as a whole, you need money to be able to do it. If your product is not generating the funds that is necessary to do the repairs that you need to have done, you'll always falter in repairs. You're going to always lag behind. No matter where you are in the world, you're going to lag behind.
So the Housing Foundation is basically always in the red. What do you say?
Always in the red.
Okay, so something you mentioned, which caught my attention, was you stated that something wasn't delivered in regards to my first question. So my question, going back to the first press release regarding the price tag for $45 million, was did you guys, sorry, yeah, so did you guys propose an estimate, or was it just a simple letter or an entire breakdown of the cost, etc., for these repairs to the World Bank? And was this is this $45 million a price tag just for repairs, but also for construction?
This is that price tag was for repairs and construction, and it wasn't just a footnote that I picked a number out of the air. A whole entire audit was done between St. Maarten Housing Foundation, BZK, and the World Bank. A team was put together in order to come and do a complete evaluation on the St. Maarten Housing Foundation as to what the problems are, where the problem lies, and to try to mitigate all of those problems. So those consultants were brought in, and that was done. This is a report, Ralph. This is the report that was done by the three ladies and was presented to government.
Can you give me a date, a timeline on that?
This thing was completed the 21st of October, 2019.
Oh, okay. And so that report is what you guys created to submit in order to gain those funds?
No, that report is not what we created.
That was the team that team put together?
Team created that report based on the needs because the report is done based on what the needs for St. Maarten was after Irma. Remember, we have a database of 2,000 plus tenants waiting on a waiting list. Now we have exceeded the 6,000 mark.
That's a lot.
6,000 families. So that just shows you the number of how great the need is. So that's why it was decided then that instead of having my person go ahead and do this research myself and put it together, we figured it was better that the whole team be brought in. There we use consultants. When we requested a 5.3, I drafted a report myself because it was simpler and everything. But
That
because
5.3 is what went to the construction of those 200 plus. I mean, the repairs of those 200 plus
no,
units.
that's the repairs of the 106
Okay.
units in Belvedere. That's the
Okay.
towers.
Okay.
That would be the towers.
Okay, gotcha.
So, and that has still not started as yet. That is dated to start sometime in November, December. Let's give or take.
Okay, end of this year.
End of this year.
All right.
Because it's a process.
Understand.
Even though everybody is talking about the money we received, we don't ever receive money. No money comes to us. When we were, this was done, remember, the 3rd of October, 2018. Today is what? The 4th. So now we can clearly state this was done 4 years ago, and the work still haven't started as yet. But it's a work in progress.
Yeah, that is, the, I guess in a sense, unfortunate part of having this extra bureaucratic process with a World Bank, and that's globally, Yeah.
World Bank process, as bureaucratic as it may be, it's a process, and it's something that we are stuck with. We can't go around it. It's there. So if it's there, we just have to use it in manner which it was made to be used. Simple as that.
For clarity, okay, because I get that. Okay, this report was done in 2019.
Yes, this was completed in 2019.
Correct. But then your proposal to get funds, to get that 45 million from the trust fund,
Yes.
was that submitted? Was that itself submitted to the government in order for it to be passed on to the steering committee?
Yes, that one was submitted, signed by Chris Raver on the 28th of February 2020.
Oh, 28th of February 2020.
Yes, that letter was signed by Chris Raver, Minister Chris Raver, because he was minister
Former
then,
Minister of Economy, yeah.
former Minister of Economy. Actually, this letter for financing was sent to basically every minister that previous and sitting from 2017.
Yeah, because we had several.
Yes, precisely.
Yeah.
So every minister that was sitting there, we knew from the get-go what our challenges would be. And since the funding was made available for social housing, because that's the main focus of it, social projects. So because all our projects are social, hey, this is the only way it works.
Okay.
And-
So
Go ahead.
I just asked for clarity's sake.
Go ahead.
So you mentioned basically you wrote a letter. But did it have to be a letter or proposal? Like,
No.
I'm just
When
not clear
anything
how the
that
process goes.
any entity wants have to be submitted in writing to their minister.
Okay, gotcha.
Once that is done, the minister is stamped and approved. The minister then has to take it to the Council of Ministers.
Okay.
The Council of Ministers then have to approve that project, stating based on what it's about. They would have to approve it. Once that is approved, then the Prime Minister is the one that's responsible for submitting it to the steering committee for evaluation. The steering committee will then give you an evaluation based on that. And if the evaluation for them is okay, then it goes on to Washington for final approval. Once that is done, it comes back. Then a contract is drafted between the Prime Minister and whichever entity submits for a project.
Okay.
That's the process.
Okay. And have you had any communication with the government on this topic since the news broke out?
You mean
Minutes, I guess.
since?
Yeah.
Well,
And how has it? So, more so, I guess, a little more further back then. How has the communication process been between the foundation and government in terms of reconstruction,
reconstruction and redevelopment.
Yeah.
Well, we have always tried to bi-weekly have meetings with the ministers in order to bring them up to speed as to what is taking place with the organization, what our stands are. But unfortunately, there was a breakdown. There's a breakdown somewhere, and communication is mainly lacking. What we have now, though, is when we received the letter indicating that the request for financing was denied, we then sent back to the minister requesting, okay, can we have a denial letter? Because if I submit a project to you in writing, then a letter of denial should be sent based outlining their objections of our reasoning for the project being denied. That has still not happened. We've sent numerous emails to various entities in order to achieve this.
And the steering committee themselves stated that they
So
haven't seen anything.
exactly. So then it's somewhere.
Okay.
So someone needs to identify where, why, how.
Okay, understood. So regarding the now raising of rents, I understood from one of the interviews you did that it's not something that it's intended across the board, or just ad hoc. But one of the questions for you where that is concerned is, was the Housing Development Foundation locked in to provide such low rates? So wasn't it at all possible to maybe consider gradual increases whether over 8 to 10 year period? Because I understand that for 25 years it's just been that set rate. So
Okay.
if you notice
what
earlier
happened,
that there was a need for more financing, then
yeah. What happened is basically I can't speak for other directors or what their reasoning was, but remember, government plays a huge role. And especially with our political climate, you start raising rent, everybody start screaming murder. So I guess nobody wanted to touch the subject because it's a subject that's pretty taboo, and nobody wants to be labeled the minister that raised rent. And even though it has nothing to do with the minister, it still comes across. Everybody still cries to the minister, hey, how they could do this, even though that's not the minister's decision. Raising rent, though, can only be done once the house is fully repaired. That means completely remodeled. And if you raise the rent, it could only be done on a proper increment. And maximum, we will do it, if anything, if we do, it'll be 10%. So if you're paying the maximum, the highest rent we have right now is 1,300 guilders. So 1,300 guilders, you add at 10%. That's 130 guilders added. So then you would have 1,430 guilders. And for the two bedroom houses that are paying 250 guilders, that is only 25 guilders added on. So you pay, instead of paying 250, you're paying 275. So when the noise that is being created about the high rent is minuscule.
Yeah.
But it's something that's needed, because funding, we cannot go and take a loan in order to do what needs to be done, because we are still social, as we call it, but our loans, there's no social loans.
But if you have a guarantor, are you able to do so?
Uh,
I don't know how it works. I'm
yeah,
trying
but
to
see, here's the
figure out,
thing.
yeah.
No, having a guarantor is besides the point,
Okay,
because the mortgage, it still needs to be paid from somewhere.
I follow you.
How is it going to be paid? If you have a commercial loan and our rent rates our commercial rates on the island are extremely high. For social entity, it's almost impossible. No, it's not impossible because we've been doing it, but it leaves you with almost little to no breathing room whatsoever. So we are barely keeping our heads above water in order to survive. And then without the delinquency as it is, with no delinquency, then we would be all right. Not okay, just all right.
Understood.
But with the delinquency that we have, we are just barely allowed to be able to keep our head above water, pay our bills, make sure everything is get done. And still, even though we still have not received anything, we are still doing the work that we are doing. We are still doing repairs. We've basically almost completed the keys on a whole. We are in Belvedere there's a lot of roof repair, doing work done in Belvedere. And we are still doing the work with the little that we have. We've restructured the organization in a manner which it is more feasible for us to manage than how it was before. So we are decent. I mean, as much as we are decent, it would have been better if we could have done more, because the project, the whole reasoning for the foundation is to be able to create a social environment that is conducive to everybody. over the years, the island, we have done a lot, but there's no increase in salaries. Every year, our everything goes up. Gasoline goes up every other day. Food prices goes up every other day. Right now, they're talking about increasing again because of this shipping, this whole shipping saga.
Yeah.
But nobody is saying anything about the salaries. If you're gonna raise your rent, raise your prices on all your commodities across the board, and not raise your minimum wage, then how are the people going to survive?
Yeah, you make a good point there.
And they definitely can't afford the rent on the open market.
Yeah, yeah, and that's a whole other discussion basically. But at present, how many damaged homes are there that you guys have?
Right now, we have
Since
106 slated. Okay, damage. The 106, those are the towers that needs going to be repaired. I think the number's incorrect, I'm saying, but I'm not 100% sure.
ballpark.
Ballpark,
So, okay,
yeah.
gotcha.
So those are the homes that are going to be repaired by the NRPB, the ERP1, that's slated for that project. Those are the homes that basically suffered the majority of the damage because they are higher, so they took the brunt of the hurricane. The other buildings, the smaller repairs that are going on, we are managing. So they are just repairs. So what we are doing right now, as much as possible, we are trying to go into what we call big maintenance, where we go in and try to revamp the house as much as possible, change the windows because all the windows, most of the windows, the doors need to be changed. So there's a process that is ongoing. It's going to take a while before it will be completed, but there's a plan in place,
Okay.
and we are moving forward.
Okay. And one of the press releases that followed y'all own stated that basically in the audit that took place, that they presented y'all with actionable recommendations provided to provided to the Housing Development Foundation so you could improve your financial performance. So what were they? What were those recommendations they provided to you guys?
All those recommendations are right here in this journal. What happened is, for years, the organization has not lived up to its responsibility in bringing out their financial reports on time. It had 1 year, we had to do 4 reports within a year. Since I've been in this position, we've done 4
How long,
reports.
if you don't mind?
I think it was 12, 13, 14, and 15 were done in the same year. And then 16 was done. Right now we are doing 17, 18, and 19 at 20 one time.
How long have you been at how long have you been director?
I've been director there for the last 3 years.
3 years, okay. And you're doing okay. So
Financials were in a mess.
basically, yeah, this is some serious structural issues.
Yes.
Organizational, yeah, okay. Understood. Now this is, thing is we don't have that much time, so this is definitely another discussion, but I understood. But yeah, but you were saying you're referencing the report and
The reference to the report
Yeah.
is it outlines, once the consultants came in, they did an audit on the organization itself. They did an audit of the agreements between Simon Hauser Foundation and government. And a lot of the agreements are outdated and no longer valid. So that's the way the sit down between us and government needs to come so we could revise and restructure everything that needs to be done. And that hasn't taken place either.
And is the housing development, is it subsidized by government?
No, it's not.
So you don't receive any grants or anything?
No, we don't.
Okay. So all the funds that
We are on our own.
understood.
What government does, the subsidies they give is for the tenants,
Gotcha.
not the organization.
Okay, understood.
And that's something that's always been misunderstood and misconstrued to be something else other than what it is. The subsidies that are received for the tenants.
Okay. But okay, gotcha. So my next question for you then is, okay, you mentioned that basically you have 6,000 families.
Yes,
Request.
plus.
Yeah, more than 6,000.
Yeah.
Requesting social homes. So on that note, at present, how much homes do you have available? And also, Can you share the amount of land that you guys have available as well for future development of homes
We
or
have
projects?
quite a few properties that is available for development. At present, we have one, two, three, four, five building permits for development that are ready to develop. That includes senior homes
Okay.
because our senior representation is dire.
Yeah. Yeah, we have an aging population.
We have an aging population that has never been considered at anything.
Mhm.
So that is something that needs to be taken into consideration. So we have plans for them, and then we have it's so two senior projects and four social projects.
Okay. Um, okay, that's good to know. And one of the old articles I saw, I think it was from 2020, stated that you guys were owed over 3 million in rent. Um, what is that number presently? Has it decreased or increased? I'm
It's
guessing.
basically steady.
Okay. And I mean, I guess it's kind of tough for you guys to do anything because it really depends on a person's ability to pay.
Precisely.
So, so I guess another question I have for you is: can the Housing Development Foundation seek funds elsewhere, and how would that process be?
Actually, yes, we can. Prior to Irma, we were in discussions with various entities, locally and abroad, in order to be granted funding at a more favorable interest rate. Like in the Netherlands, if you go to the Netherlands, your interest rate will be 1%, which is nothing. Compared to St. Maarten, you're at 7.5%,
Yeah.
which you don't see it. And but those were that we have discussions, and we will continue to have these discussions. Now that this thing has gone the way it has gone, and this wasn't the intention, but yeah, it is what it is,
Mm.
and life goes on.
Okay. So I had a question for you, which you kind of answered, which was, do you have a site or any place available to be able to access any of your yearly reports? But yeah, you said that basically that's still in the works.
They're still in the works, yeah.
Okay. So I guess my final question for you would be: how has the Housing Development Foundation addressed the maintenance issues that tenants face, and what really are the solutions to that you guys have for clearing up, the island's housing crisis, and particularly decisions that were or were not made in the past?
You know, that is ticklish because this basically should have been the solution. Unfortunately, you have others that I really can't say, don't know what transpired. Not gonna pretend to know because I don't. Moving forward, though, the issues that we face with Housing Foundation is a lot of materials that we use are all European standard materials.
Okay.
And not even standard because most of those materials used in Housing Foundation, you can't get them anywhere in the world anymore. They've become obsolete.
Mm.
So what we are doing, everything that is empty, and we start doing repairs, we've done our repairs in a manner where we go in and try to put everything as much as possible to American standards, to use the material that is readily available for us. That's one way of being able to mitigate and to combat this backlog and maintenance issues. That's all we can do. But again, everything that you want to do takes money.
Yeah. And but have you guys sought any private public sort of partnerships? Get
No,
any
you see,
assist- can you do that then? Also?
yes, we can.
Okay.
Prior prior to Irma,
Mm.
that was the discussion. Post Irma, this was our discussion for because the money was there available to do so. We even had discussion with one of the basic care officers where I said, listen, I would make an all complete office to you available so that you could come down here and do your work and do whatever you want. As long as the money came, I don't care who come with it, that's besides the point. The whole thing is we needed homes. We need homes. We don't have the funds to build homes. as we would want. We have the building permits and the properties available to start these projects, and everything else work.
Understood. Well, on that note, Mr. Bell, I'd like to thank you so much for your elucidation and clarifying some stuff. And to our viewers and listeners, I also hope that you took away some interesting points from this discussion. You're listening to the news behind the news on Mix 94.7 FM, and be sure to catch our next show. Take care and have a great afternoon.